I'm sitting in my sunroom this morning, drinking tea and watching the birds at the feeder I put up in my own backyard. And I still can't quite believe this place is mine. 15 years I've lived here now, and some mornings I still wake up thinking I need to ask permission to paint a wall or plant a flower. Old habits die hard when you've spent 65 years of your life living in other people's places. I'm Ruth, and I'm 80 years old, and I didn't buy my first home until I was 65 years old. Not because I couldn't afford it earlier, not because I was waiting for the right time, but because life just kept happening in ways I never expected. Let me tell you about it, because maybe you know someone who thinks they've missed their chance, or maybe you're wondering if it's ever too late to start something new. I was born in 1944, and I grew up in my grandmother's house in Cleveland. My mother was a single parent. My father left when I was 3, and moving in with Grandma Rose was the practical thing to do. Grandma owned the house outright, a little 2-story on Elm Street that she'd bought with my grandfather in the 1920s. I lived there until I got married at 22 to Paul, a man I met at the office where I worked as a secretary. Paul was in the military, and for the first 10 years of our marriage, we moved every 18 to 24 months. Germany, California, North Carolina, Texas, back to Ohio. We lived in base housing mostly, or rented apartments near whatever post Paul was stationed at. I used to joke that I could pack up a household in 6 hours flat. I'd gotten so good at living temporarily that I stopped thinking about putting down roots. Every place we lived felt like a stop along the way to somewhere else, because it usually was. When Paul got out of the service in 1976, we were 32 years old with 2 young children, and we settled back in Cleveland. Paul got a job with the post office, and I went back to work part-time at an insurance company. We rented a 3-bedroom house in a nice neighborhood with good schools. For the first time in our married life, we were staying put. The kids needed stability, and we needed to save money. But every time we talked about buying a house, something else came up. Paul's car broke down and needed a new transmission. Katie needed braces. Tommy broke his arm and the medical bills piled up. There was always something more urgent than a down payment. The truth was, we'd gotten comfortable renting. Our landlord, Mr. Henderson, was a good man who fixed things quickly and never raised our rent unreasonably. When the roof leaked, we called him. When the furnace went out, it was his problem. We had no property taxes, no maintenance costs, no unexpected expenses that came with owning. The years went by faster than I realized. The kids graduated high school, went to college, got married. Paul and I stayed in that same rental house for 18 years. By the time we started seriously talking about buying, we were in our 50s, and it felt like maybe we'd missed our window. Then Paul died suddenly in 1999. Heart attack at 55, no warning, just gone. I was 55 years old, and for the first time in my life, I was completely on my own. The kids were grown and living their own lives. Katie in Denver, Tommy in Atlanta. I was alone in a rented house trying to figure out what came next. The grief hit me in waves. Some days I couldn't get out of bed. Other days I'd clean the whole house just to keep my hands busy. Mr. Henderson was kind enough to let me stay month to month while I figured things out, but I knew I couldn't stay there forever. Too many memories, too many reminders of the life Paul and I had built together. For 5 years, I drifted. I moved to a smaller apartment closer to downtown, then to a different apartment in a complex with other single women my age. I was working full-time by then. Paul's pension and Social Security weren't enough to live on comfortably, and I told myself I was being practical. No maintenance, no yard work, no unexpected expenses. But something was missing. I'd wake up in the middle of the night in these apartments, and I wouldn't remember where I was for a moment. Nothing belonged to me. Nothing was mine to change or improve or care for. I was existing, not living. The turning point came when my granddaughter Emma was born in 2008. Katie had moved back to Ohio to be closer to family, and she asked if Emma could spend weekends with me. I looked around my sterile 1-bedroom apartment and realized I had nowhere for a child to play. Nowhere to put toys. Nowhere that felt like a real grandmother's house. That's when I called a real estate agent. Her name was Linda, and she was about my age, a woman who'd gotten into real estate after her own kids grew up. I told her honestly that I'd never owned a home, that I was 64 years old, and that I wasn't sure what I was doing. Linda didn't laugh or act like I was crazy. She said, "Ruth, I sold my first house to a 90-year-old woman last month. It's never too late to have a place that's truly yours." We looked at condos first, since I was worried about maintenance, but nothing felt right. Then Linda suggested we look at some smaller houses, maybe something that needed cosmetic work, but was structurally sound. "You've got good credit, a steady job, and money saved," she said. "You're actually a very attractive buyer." That's how I found this house. A small ranch built in 1965, 2 bedrooms, 1 bath, with a living room that opens to a kitchen and a sunroom that looks out over the backyard. The previous owner was an elderly man who'd lived here for 30 years but hadn't updated much. The carpets were orange shag, the kitchen had avocado appliances, and the bathroom had pink tiles. But the bones of the house were good. The roof was only 5 years old, the furnace was newer, and there was a big maple tree in the backyard that would be perfect for a swing set. The asking price was $89,000. I was terrified. At 65 years old, I was about to take on a 30-year mortgage. What if I couldn't keep up with the payments? What if something major broke? What if I died before it was paid off and left my kids with a financial burden? Linda sat with me at the kitchen table in my apartment and went through the numbers. My rent was already $700 a month. With a modest down payment, my mortgage would be about the same. The difference, she said, is that in 15 years, you'll own something instead of having nothing to show for all those rent payments. I put $15,000 down, money I'd saved over the years from Paul's life insurance, and signed the papers in October 2009. The first night in my own house, I walked from room to room, turning on every light just because I could. I sat in the sunroom at midnight, drinking tea and listening to my own furnace, my own refrigerator, my own house settling around me. The first thing I did was rip up that orange shag carpet. Underneath was beautiful hardwood that just needed refinishing. I painted every room myself, soft blues and greens instead of the beige and white I'd lived with in apartments. I planted flower boxes under the front windows and put in a vegetable garden in the backyard. Emma got her swing set under the maple tree. She helped me plant sunflowers one spring, and we watched them grow taller than both of us. She learned to ride her bike in my driveway, and she has sleepovers in what she calls her room, the second bedroom that I decorated just for her visits. The house has needed repairs over the years. The kitchen faucet leaked, and I learned to fix it myself with YouTube videos. I hired someone to paint the outside when I turned 75 and decided climbing ladders wasn't smart anymore. Last year, I had to replace the water heater, and yes, it was expensive, but it was my water heater in my house, and I could afford to fix it. I'm 80 now, and this house is paid off. The mortgage I was so scared of taking at 65 was paid in full last year. I own this place outright, and someday it'll go to my kids. But more than that, it's given me something I never had before, a place in the world that's completely mine. My neighbors bring me tomatoes from their garden and borrow my ladder. I host Christmas dinner here now, not as big as some families, but it's mine to host. I've painted Emma's bedroom 3 different colors as she's grown from a toddler to a teenager. I know which corner of the yard gets morning sun and which stairs creak when you step on them. People sometimes ask me if I regret waiting so long to buy a house. The truth is, I wasn't ready before then. Not financially, not emotionally, not practically. For 65 years, I lived in places that belonged to other people, and I thought that was just how my life was going to be. But it turned out there was another chapter I hadn't imagined. Buying this house at 65 taught me that it's never too late to put down roots. I may have fewer years left than most first-time homeowners, but every morning I wake up in a place that's mine feels like a gift. Every flower I plant, every wall I paint, every repair I make is an investment in the life I'm still living. If you're older and think you've missed your chance at homeownership, or if you know someone who's convinced they're too late to start over, maybe my story will help. Banks aren't scared of older buyers with good credit and steady income, and life doesn't have an expiration date for new beginnings. Sometimes the best chapters are the ones you write when you finally know who you are and what you want. I spent most of my life living in temporary places, but this house feels permanent in all the ways that matter. Not because I'll live here forever, none of us will live anywhere forever, but because it's the place where I finally learned what it means to be truly at home. If this story brings back memories of your own journey to homeownership, or if you're still on that journey, I'd love to hear about it. Share this with someone who might need to hear that there's no timeline for making your dreams come true. And tell me in the comments, what's something you thought you were too old to start but did anyway? Sometimes the most inspiring stories are about people who refused to believe it was too late.